fact that that did a lot of work in St. Louis that we'll be talking about his efforts here shortly. So Bill Emerson was born in St. Louis, where he spent most of his childhood, raised in Jefferson County. He served in the U.S. Air Force and started his political career very early. When at 16, he served as a House page. He worked as a congressional aide for a couple of different representatives, and was eventually elected to the House of Representatives for Southeast Missouri. His passion was alleviating hunger. So he sat on a variety of committees, including the Agricultural Committee, and worked on the House Select Committee on Hunger, where he worked on many, many different anti-hunger policies and initiative, one of them being the food donation law, which is often known as the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Law. The proposal finally passed just shortly after he passed away in 1996 and was then named the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act. He also championed for the Bill Emerson Humanitarian Trust, which provides emergency food from USAID in unanticipated crises, and his legacy continues on in the National Hunger Fellowship through the Congressional Hunger Center. Bill Emerson was a St. Louis champion, just like all of you, and I thought, you know, it's important to understand just how invaluable the St. Louis community has been in alleviating hunger, not just in Missouri, but all over the world. And so he championed these efforts just like you all. And in order to kind of talk about his efforts with you, with your efforts as well, I'd like to introduce Jean Ponzi. Jean serves as the Green Resources Manager at the Missouri Botanical Garden in St. Louis. She's a 26-year veteran of the garden's EarthWays Center team. Jean currently applies her sustainability expertise as manager of the St. Louis Green Business Challenge, operator of the garden's Green Resources Info Service, and on the leadership team for the regional initiative Biodiverse City St. Louis. Her Enviro interview show Earthworms has logged over 32 years of conversations through KDHX St. Louis Independent Media as her volunteer community service. Jean is in demand as a speaker, writer, and media spokesperson, offering local and national audiences both practical options and ecological inspiration. Jean will moderate today's panel about the donation law and examples of how these advantages are used right here in St. Louis. Jean?
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks very much. I'm so happy to be here in this company of champions. As Michelle mentioned, the primary part of my job is management of the St. Louis Green Business Challenge, which I have worked on since the program was launched in 2010. And the benefits to business of identifying food waste, of donating food, of participating in food distribution and food access processes is significant. So we'll start our panel today. We'll be hearing from the Harvard Food Policy and Law Clinic, the world champion St. Louis Cardinals, and the St. Louis Area Food Bank. And our first presenter is Ariel Ardura. She is a clinical fellow at the Harvard Law School Food Law and Policy Clinic. Her work focuses on domestic food waste and recovery policy, as well as SNAP and other federal food access and nutrition programs. Ariel works with clients and partners to advocate for strengthening food systems at all levels and translate research into comprehensive and compelling resources for policymakers. She received her JD in 2019 from Georgetown University Law Center and holds a Bachelor of Urban and Environmental Planning from the University of Virginia. Thank you for that dual focus in environmental and law work, Ariel Ardura, and take it away about the Good Samaritan Law and the taxes, the legality of food donation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jean. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here with you all today. I am an attorney and senior clinical fellow at the Harvard Law School Food Law and Policy Clinic. And as Jean said, I'm going to be talking about the Bill Emerson Act today, as well as tax incentives for food donation. So give me just a second and I will share my screen so you can see my slides. Okay, there we go. Okay, so just to give you a quick roadmap of what I'm going to be talking about, I'll just give you a brief overview of the Food Law and Policy Clinic's work so you understand what we do. Then I'll talk a little bit about food waste and what the problem is, although I know you've heard a lot about that today, so I won't take too long on that. Then I'll talk about federal liability protection for food donation, and then tax incentives for food donation. So FLPC operates like a small nonprofit policy institute in that we provide legal and policy advice to nonprofits, government agencies, entrepreneurs, and other organizations on a range of food policy questions.
Ariel, your slides are not going forward.
They're not?
No.
Okay. That's weird.
Not displaying in slideshow mode.
Yeah, you're still in like edit mode.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. Sorry. Let me stop sharing for a second. That's never happened before. Okay.
There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Okay, there we go. So they're moving?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay. So as a clinic at a law school, our role is also to teach students about these issues in the classroom and work on clinic projects to bring awareness to these issues, develop solutions, and provide resources to client organizations. We work across several areas in the clinic that you can see here: community food system planning, sustainable food production, food access and nutrition, and then our biggest area is reducing food waste. We think strategically about how to use policy development to reduce barriers to food recovery and increase incentives for food recovery through law and policy. We receive hundreds of emails and phone calls every year to help answer legal questions from donor businesses, food banks, or food rescue organizations, as well as policymakers at all levels of government who want to understand the law or are asking for advice to help make it easier to donate. We also try to help coordinate and drive policy conversations about how to reduce food waste through the publication of reports, as well as our advocacy for food waste reduction legislation. So just really quickly, why talk about food waste? In 2019, the US let a huge 35% of the 229 million tons of food available in the country go unsold or uneaten. The vast majority of the surplus food becomes food waste, which goes straight to landfill or incineration or down the drain, or it's just left in the fields to rot. And it's estimated that about 24% of all food overall in the US, or 54 million tons, becomes waste. That's almost 90 billion meals worth of food that we're letting go unsold or uneaten each year, which is the equivalent of about 2% of the US GDP. And the impacts of this surplus food and food waste on our climate and the environment are huge, since food that is never eaten still requires a ton of resources to grow, harvest, transport, cool, cook, or otherwise prepare food, even when it ends up being disposed of. And at FLPC, we talk about food waste as being a triple bottom line opportunity. It can help people. 12% of American families are food insecure, and a household of 4 wastes more than 1,500 of food each year. But by recovering just 30% of wasted food, we could feed all food insecure Americans. There's also, it can help the planet. A 20% reduction in food waste could save about 1.6 trillion gallons of water and avoid 18 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions annually. And then finally, there's room to, profit from this. A 20% reduction could generate 15,000 new jobs and 1.9 billion in annual business profit. So For these reasons, there's growing attention on food waste from all sectors, from business, consumers, and definitely from policymakers. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about what this looks like from the policy side. So you've seen and heard about the hierarchy a few times at this point today, and I'm sure you're all familiar with it. But just in case, the food recovery hierarchy prioritizes actions that organizations can take to prevent and divert wasted food. And the tier we're going to be focusing on today, well, in my presentation, is feeding hungry people. So we'll be talking about these two different food donation related policy areas: liability protection and tax incentives. So what is liability protection? It's legal coverage for people who donate food or receive donated food in the case that someone gets sick from that food. And what it does is make it easier for people and businesses to donate food by reducing their concerns over any legal liability. And in the US, at the federal level, we have what's called the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act. And you just heard a little bit about Bill Emerson. I didn't know any of that about him. I didn't know he was from St. Louis, so that's really cool to hear. But what this law does is protect donors, nonprofits, volunteers, and gleaners from civil and criminal liability for food donation unless they act with gross negligence or intentional misconduct. And there are a few requirements that must be met in order for the liability protection to apply. So the food must be donated to a nonprofit in good faith. The food must meet all federal, state, and local quality and labeling requirements. The donated food must be distributed by the nonprofit to needy individuals, and needy individuals receiving the food must not pay for it. So it has to go to them for free. States also have protections, some of which go above federal, but I'm not going to be focusing on those today. So I just wanted to take a few moments to go through some of the terminology here that's a little confusing sometimes. So one term is gross negligence, and what that is, it involves voluntary and conscious conduct by a person or organization that knew at the time of donation that the food was likely to have harmful health impacts. Intentional misconduct is when a person or organization donates with knowledge that the conduct is harmful to the health or well-being of another person. So essentially, an individual or organization should not donate or facilitate the distribution of donated food that the individual or organization knows is likely to be harmful or dangerous. Unfortunately, the Bill Emerson Act, doesn't give much guidance on what activities constitute gross negligence or intentional misconduct. But the legislative history of the Emerson Act indicates that this would be analyzed on a case-by-case basis. And then finally, going back to no charge for the food. So the ultimate recipients cannot pay for the donated food. They must receive it for free. However, if one nonprofit donates food to another nonprofit for distribution, the Act does allow the first nonprofit to charge the distributing nonprofit a nominal fee to cover handling and processing costs. So I don't think, I had some hypotheticals, but I don't think I have time for them. So I'm just gonna skip ahead to tax incentives. So there are several tax deductions for food donations at the federal level. And these, provide encouragement to donate food that might otherwise be wasted. So the first one is the general tax deduction. This is the deduction for the cost of the item to the business. C corporations can deduct up to 10% of their annual income. And then other businesses can deduct up to 50% of their annual income. And donations must be made to qualifying organizations. Okay. And then there's the enhanced federal deduction for specifically for food donation. And with this one, businesses can deduct up to twice the cost of the item to the business. And when this passed in 2005, and when that happened, food donation increased by 137% the next year. So we know that it's working to incentivize businesses to donate. There are a few requirements that must be met in order to receive this tax deduction. So donations must be made to 501c3 organizations that use the food solely for the care of the ill, the needy, or infants. And then businesses claiming the enhanced tax deduction for donating food must receive a written statement from the recipient organization. And this written statement has to include a description of the donated property and the date of its receipt, among some other things. And then finally, the food donations must comply with all applicable requirements of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act at the time the donation is made, as well as for the 180 days preceding the donation. So for example, the food may not be adulterated or misbranded. If it is, then the donating business cannot receive the tax deduction. Okay, so I think I'm over time at this point, so I'm just gonna leave you with a few key takeaways. One is that the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act protects food donors and donee organizations from legal liability. So it's very, broad protection for food donation. And then businesses are eligible to receive these federal tax deductions for food donation. So they can really even benefit themselves from donating food. And I will stop sharing. Thank you all. Looking forward to your questions in a few minutes.
Thank you, Ariel, very much. I hope we do get to get a little bit of information about those examples that you have in your presentation. So the St. Louis Cardinals, world champion St. Louis Cardinals, they have been a participant in the St. Louis Green Business Challenge for all 12 of our program years. They were doing green before anybody else in business was doing green in St. Louis, except frankly for our colleagues at the St. Louis Zoo. Martin Bethea is the concession manager with Delaware North Sportservice. They're the contractor that runs the concessions and the food and hospitality services at Busch Stadium here in St. Louis. Martin is responsible, and I got to take a moment here to give you a shout out of some context of the many things that the Cardinals do in sustainability locally and with national influence. They have been a leader in national problem solving, greening, networking in the sporting world overall through the Green Sports Alliance. They are an honoree with US EPA partnerships, WasteWise and Energy Star. They have hosted Green Weeks annually before COVID-19, and I'm sure they will do that again for the fans during April to celebrate Earth Day. They have solar, they have LED lights, they have contributed LED lights to schools in our area. They are a recipient of multiple awards. And the Cardinals, I cannot understate the importance and the value of the way in which the Cardinals lead the league in green, whatever the play turns out to be in any given program year, in their influence and their engagement in the sporting world around sustainability. They have a rockin' green team behind the scenes and a fabulous team on the field. Martin Bethea, our next speaker, is pictured on the left there. This is Andrew Wheeler presenting the EPA Region 7 Food Waste Recovery Challenge to the Cardinals in I believe it was 2019. Martin is responsible for the Delaware North Green Initiative program called GreenPath here in St. Louis. He has participated in the Cardinals Delaware North Green Initiative for over 11 years. Delaware North, a part of Busch Stadium for over 50 years, has consistently supported the Cardinals' greening efforts by composting food, food donations, and recycling used kitchen oil and cardboard. The GreenPath team partners with Operation Food Search and the Salvation Army. Since 2010, they have donated over 40 tons of food to their programs, even through the pandemic. In 2020, they donated nearly 2 tons of food to Operation Food Search. in a year when games were played basically without fans. So far in 2021, they have donated over 13 tons of food, including produce, snacks, and bread. The Delaware North Food Donation Program is a team effort that positively impacts communities, the environment, and the business operations of Delaware North and the St. Louis Cardinals. So Martin, take it away. Martin Bethea.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Jen, you took a lot of my thunder. Okay. Can you guys see me now?
Yep, we can go back through
Okay.
those slides, Martin.
So Delaware North Sportservice, the oldest name in sports hospitality, is one of the leading food service and retail management companies in sports, serving fans at more than 50 sports stadiums, ballparks, and arenas. As stated, our company website, one of the hallmarks of Delaware North across our operation is the focus we put on stewardship and corporate social responsibility. Our proprietary stewardship platform, GreenPath, helps ensure we carefully manage our environment impact and positively contribute to the communities we serve. Our GreenPath program started in 1990 and has continued to grow in various parts of our company. GreenPath has evolved to include a robust stewardship platform that supports sustainability and features 5 key branches that go beyond environmental management, demonstrating our commitment to operating responsibly and protecting natural and cultural resources. To minimize the impact from our operation, we established goals and implement improvement focused on sourcing responsibly, eliminating waste, conserving water, and reducing energy consumption. Delaware North, the GreenPath, is a leader in environmental stewardship and supporting our efforts for zero waste. We composted 5.5 million pounds of food waste, which is enough to grow 18 million ears of corn. We have donated 772 pounds of prepared food that equates to 600,000 dinners. As Jean mentioned, Delaware North has been part of the St. Louis Cardinals for over the past 50 years as a concessionaire retail provider respectively for those years. We have consistently supported Busch Stadium green efforts. With also collaborating with the Operation Food Search and the Salvation Army, we continue to improve each year of what we did in previous years. We definitely had a few bumps and bruises along the way, but at the beginning of the season, we tried to find ways to improve the previous years. Some of the challenges we had initially were finding an organization, deciding what food to donate, issues on donating days, and scheduling pickups. So finding an organization that can utilize everything we wanted to donate was a hurdle at the beginning. Some organizations wanted specific foods, but most of our items were donated would be concession items, such as hot dogs or hamburger buns, bulk bags of popcorn, hot dogs, the typical things you would see at the stadium. The next was deciding on what food to donate and how to do it. Was another challenge. As was mentioned earlier, some organizations enlightened us on the Bill Emerson Protection Act of 1996. This helped shield the company of anything liable when we donated food. So we decided to try different options for donations. We tried donating prep food for the buffet lines that never went out to the guests. We tried collecting food items from the concession stand that were cooked and could be consolidated for multiple locations. We even tried donating additional hot dogs that were cooked on Hot Dog Sunday. Sometimes it was an excess of 500 to 800 hot dogs. We had a cooler stored on the dock for each of those so we can place them for pickup. But as typical business models, manpower started to be a factor, and panning up the food items and or transporting to the food dock area. Next were issues on delivery days or pickup days. Sometimes we had no food to donate. Food was not ready to be picked up for the driver. Sometimes the driver didn't come on their scheduled time. And sometimes we just had to discard the food and put it in the trash, which is something we didn't want to do. It goes back to the pickup days. Initially, I didn't have a set plan of someone coming and pick up. By not having anything planned, it was a crapshoot to get a yes sometimes. If it was a no, either I had a backup plan for food or the food went in the trash again. And we definitely had to change that. And the way we had to find ways to correct all of the above issues, it was magic. All we had to do was communicate. So we all communicated. We had the management team at the stadium that deals with the food. We set perimeters of what we would donate and how we would do it. So then, for the last 5 years, our motto at the stadium became anything food related that was in the cooler and could not last until the next homestand, we will compile on pallets and donate to one of our food donation partners. At the beginning of each baseball season, I would send the management team and Operation Food Search a schedule for pickup time and the day. We all agreed 2 days after the last game of the homestand at 1 p.m. would be the best. So for this past weekend, we actually have a pickup today scheduled at 1 o'clock for Operation Food Search. So far, this has been going great with minor changes. The best way to speak on how we do and why we do what we do is based on having a great partnership with the St. Louis Cardinals. They have challenged us to find ways to reduce waste, water, and electric usage throughout the stadium, and we accept those challenges and many more. Just as the Cardinals have a long winning tradition with their fans, we want to have a long winning tradition with the Cardinals with their sustainability efforts. You have to have a partnership and a strong team effort with your donation partners. Operation Food Search and the Salvation Army is always ready to go back for us when we are ready for a food donation. I had to throw in a baseball reference today. Donation can be beneficial to a company bottom line as well. Instead of food being wasted or end up in the landfill, a donation could be a tax credit for a company. The fair market value of all donated food items on the day can be claimed for that year. The contribution of Delaware North Food Donation Program is a team effort that positively influences communities, the environment, and the business. We strive to eliminate waste from the landfill. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin Bethea. Thank you very much. The combination there of partnership, team effort, and competition in sports, where competition is the name of the game, that, in my view, is sustainability embodied. You get both sides of that competition, collaboration, working together for success and benefit. Our next speaker is Katelyn Majors. She's Director of Product Acquisition with the St. Louis Area Foodbank. Working primarily in the sourcing department, Katelyn's role is to procure both donated and purchased product for the food bank. The prime focus is to ensure fresh and on-time product for area soup kitchens, pantries, and mobile distributions across 26 Missouri and Illinois counties, including the St. Louis area. This includes working together with local and non-local manufacturers, retail partners, and other food banks on new project assortments to combat hunger. Before joining the St. Louis Area Food Bank, Katelyn has held various purchasing and demand planning roles for local companies, Berlin Packaging, and Save-A-Lot food stores. Katelyn Majors from St. Louis Area Food Bank, welcome.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me as a speaker today. As you mentioned, I'm the newest member of the food bank, looking over the sourcing department. And today I put together a presentation, more so with generic information about all the great things that we're doing. And as you touched, Jean, I have been working throughout the St. Louis area for the past 8 or 9 years, starting with Save a Lot food stores in their purchasing department, working primarily with general merchandise, baking, and baby assortments. And after that, my most recent company I was with was Berlin Packaging, who supplies lots of bottles, caps to some of our neighboring manufacturers. I firsthand throughout the last year got to see some of the challenges that we've had in our supply chain system, primarily in the wine industry and shortage on glass and plastics. It's pretty apparent that our supply chain is still going through a lot of issues as far as finding drivers and labor in general. So a little bit of facts about our food bank. Even though we are called the St. Louis Area Food Bank, we serve over 26 counties across the bi-state region, 14 in Missouri and 12 in Illinois. And this number here, 261,000 people relying on us for food assistance, has grown ever since the pandemic. It's probably even closer to 400,000 at this time. A lot of questions that we have is, do we give out food ourselves? And that the answer is no. We do rely on a lot of our partners, 600 agencies throughout the area. This ranges from food pantries to soup kitchens, shelters, senior communities, and we have a great school program that we just launched and will be growing this year. So we're even distributing food right in our own schools to people that need it, primarily children. Our mission statement is here as well. Our main goal is to feed hungry people, but through that to also offer awareness of food insecurity throughout all the counties that we serve through education. What is a food bank? For those who are not too familiar with what we do, here's just a few photos of, here on the left is my favorite. Our volunteer center is so crucial to our operations. We bring in food through food drives and collections from a lot of our manufacturers, and a lot of that food is sorted right here at our facility in Bridgeton, Missouri. And there on the bottom left, our truck, we have 19 drivers full-time right now. They're primarily throughout the region picking up food and distributing food. So a lot of times the donations that we're receiving are going out the same day. We're really key on getting our fresh perishable food out as quickly as possible. So here's a little snapshot here of the areas that we serve. That little blue dot right in the middle is where we are located in Bridgeton. And you can see that we are kind of split right in the middle between Missouri and Illinois. So who is at risk for hunger? We touched on earlier, the earlier speakers about how crucial it is to feed those in our community. So 39% here on the left is our children. They're under age 18. So how are we targeting those communities? It's primarily through schools, through food distributions, reaching those children in our area. 42% are employed. So even though you may have a job, a lot of these individuals in our area are relying on food banks and pantries to feed their families. And this one most recently on the right, 51% are having to choose, do I pay my rent or do I pay something else? It's just a decision that we never want anyone to make between food and keeping the lights on. And as we all know, throughout the pandemic, these probably need to be adjusted, right? So many are at that point shortly with those laws coming to an end on eviction protection. 261,000 people living in our bi-state regionally. Again, this number is growing as we're starting to see. Over 100,000 people are children under the age of 18, 18,000 senior citizens, and 2,500 homeless. So how does it all work? Kind of touching on how do we get the food out quickly? So one of the topics I even saw during the breakout sessions was the logistics, that being an issue on how to make donations given the shortages that you're seeing. So Here at the top, our donors, they range from manufacturers, distributors, retailers, growers, farmers. And what we do is we pick up that product, or you drop it off at our facility to the St. Louis Area Food Bank. And then sometimes even within the same day, we are delivering this product to our partner agencies throughout the area. In turn, they are the ones that are distributing this food to 1 in 8 St. Louisans who need it the most. And again, I mean, I just like to stress on this slide that it all starts with those relationships that we have with our donors throughout the Missouri and Illinois network. So it really starts with you. We would not be here without the support of all those in our community. It's so important. Some of the programs that we utilize and we put together to, again, distribute as much food as possible. Mobile markets there at the top, we have launched a new program called Food on the Move that primarily hits food deserts within St. Louis and Illinois. We also have those pickups. We have a dock here in Bridgeton that agencies can place orders for food that they find desirable or they would think would match well with their pantry, and they can pick up here at our facility. All the time we're dropping food. We have food fairs. A lot of times, I mean, when I was driving through just down my own street during the pandemic, I would see those food fairs, those tents, you know, those drive-through events, and a lot of that food is coming from our food bank. We have our USDA program, our commodity supplemental food program, and we are also able to purchase food from area companies. Again, that's always supporting them as well. I do also like to point out that, I mean, our community support of around 65%. A lot of that is funding those purchases that we have specific programs for. That way we can appeal to some areas that might want specific types of food that we might not receive through donations. So it's again, just that much vital to have those connections as well. Have this little slide here, again, kind of some of the things that I was touching on. So there in the top left is a photo of one of our drive-through food distributions. And on the bottom, there's that Food on the Move truck that I had touched on as well. I myself, even though I am a little bit newer to the food bank, I had a firsthand experience on the Food on the Move truck last week. And when I tell you that most of the people that were coming to those food desert areas were working class people. So I had the pleasure of even speaking to a woman who was on her way to work, and she just needed food for her kids. So I mean, it really could be your neighbor who's impacted by food insecurity. Some product donation ideas. So I won't go through all these, but just looking on this list, lots of ideas. If you have any types of these products, you can contact me or my team. I will put my contact information on the last slide. And if it's something maybe even that you think we might not need, I mean, you can always contact us and we can guide you in the right direction. Something that is not pictured on the screen, and again, kind of going back to my packaging experience, is we're always looking for things that we can put food in. So whether it be boxes or tape or something in your own supply closet, definitely think of the St. Louis Food Bank for those opportunities. And some advantages of donating to the food bank, again, we're solving those inventory management challenges, right? If you're not able to turn enough inventory in a fast enough amount of time, we're there to decrease your own capacity. We again offer liability protection. We have that large network of partner agencies, and we are a certified nonprofit. So when you do make a donation, we are able to provide you a receipt so that you can work with your own accounting department and submit those for reimbursement at the end of the year. So how does it impact you and your organization? I mean, I throw this number up here, $4,000 per truckload. There is a cost associated with disposing food waste. So whether it's $4,000 per truckload for the amount of product that you're throwing away, Just think of what that bottom line can mean for not only you, but the community as well that we are serving together. And lastly, how to donate. Here's my contact information here on the screen. I have a great team here at the Food Bank, Jordan and Will, who can assist you with any type of donations that you may think would be useful to our community. And also, if you're also looking for a food drive. So if you have a large network of employees within your building, if you really want to, we go back to education and working together. Food drive is a great way to start, to bring up what's happening in our region, how we can work together, get your employees engaged. We have a great volunteer center as well that you're always welcome to come and volunteer with you or your team. It's just a great way to get it started. And lastly, just thank you to some of the people that we've worked with here on the screen. And if we have not worked together, I look forward to doing that as well. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you very much, Katelyn. We have a few minutes for questions before we go to breakout at 11:15. Would you please type your questions in the chat? I do have one, and I want to direct it to you specifically, Katelyn. Relative to businesses and what businesses can do to address food needs and food insecurity, what are the gaps that you're seeing in St. Louis that our business community could potentially better fill?
Gaps is in the types of products or just challenges? Whatever. Challenges that we're seeing are, are we able to get the inventory picked up quick enough? Or is it too far? Do they have the capacity to move the product around? So really what we're trying to do is work internally to maximize our own fleet, to work with other food banks as well. Because you could reach out to us and we may or may not be able to take it. A great item is hand sanitizer. Everyone has a lot of hand sanitizer, so there could be another an area, a food bank that may have a need for those types of items. So really just making those connections to others, if it isn't us, I think is key.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Martin, you mentioned that the Cardinals made some shifts in the ways that you were handling the food that was available, that was prepared, or that could still be distributed, might have been past its distribution date for you. What was, just kind of recap for us briefly, how you addressed that? Did you need to get some, drivers were an issue, transportation, that's exactly what Katelyn just said. So your example, the Cardinals example of how you worked around that problem of getting the food moved from the stadium to the location, just recap that for us, would you?
The biggest was finding a good partner. Initially, it wasn't Operation Food Search. It was, to be honest, we were crawling at the beginning. So we just called at the last minute, hey, we got food. Did you have anybody pick it up? So initially, it was anybody who came to the stadium, we could donate your food. So it got to the point where, hey, let's sit down and plan this out. So we got the Operation Food Search, found out that they were very good about coming and picking it up. And then we start doing a schedule. When we put a schedule in place, they always met the deadline. So it was 2 days after the homestand at 1 o'clock. It made it simple. So it was more so of communicating with the team at the stadium and also communicating with Operation Food Search. And the Salvation Army became like the backup donation. So if Operation Food Search couldn't get it, the Salvation Army would do it. So you got to have an A and a B plan. And sometimes it might be a C, but you always got to have a plan to where you want to donate the food and have great partners, like I mentioned at the beginning.
Thank you. And Ariel, as you work with food policy and work with law and are looking at this from a national perspective, what are the biggest gaps that you see that potentially businesses could help advocate for to make it more efficient and more attractive to reduce food and donate food?
That's a great question. So there are a couple of things. In terms of liability protection, one of the things we really have advocated for over the years is expanding the Emerson Act to also provide protection for when nonprofits receiving donated food charge a very low fee to the ultimate recipients rather than having to donate for free. So it'd be a very, small cost, just enough to help them cover their costs of handling and processing and administering the food. This would kind of help them expand their operations, be able to feed more people, be a little bit more innovative in their models. So that's one area where we've done a lot of advocacy. We've helped introduce a bill, the Food Donation Improvement Act, which is a Blumenthal-Toomey bill. And we're hoping for reintroduction again soon. So if you see that, we would love to have your help supporting that bill. And then in terms of tax deductions, one gap, well, there are a few gaps. One is that farmers and producers really generally don't make enough to be able to take advantage of the general or the enhanced tax deduction. So one thing that we've pushed for a while is creating a tax credit that farmers would be able to receive for donated food. And then the other thing is a tax deduction. We've heard a few times now that transportation is tricky. So a tax deduction to help cover the cost of transporting donated food. There isn't legislation in the works at the moment, but we're working on it, trying to get some senators or representatives to introduce such legislation. And so I can keep you all posted if that does happen. And we would definitely love to have help supporting that as well.
Thanks. And another question for you, Ariel, that Liz Essman posted earlier. She manages City Greens Market here in St. Louis. Are there any federal incentives for donating food if you're a nonprofit giving to another nonprofit?
Thank you. I was just about to get to that too. So great question. The answer is unfortunately no. So because nonprofits are exempt from federal income tax, you're not able to take advantage of these sorts of tax deductions.
Okay. Martin, question about the hot dogs, about something like hot dogs, which you would think would be an abundant item after a game. Might it be possible to have a pop-up distribution event after a game? And if so, who would organize that? Or is that organizing a barrier? Get Fred Bird out there giving out hot dogs in the tailgate area of Ballpark Village. I'm not sure about that.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes. Now you're muted.
Huh?
There you go.
Okay, sorry about that. I think that's security-wise, how everything is now in the COVID, that will not be possible. I think that's the big factor right now.
But is that something that might be reconsidered when COVID restrictions are not the norm?
That is something we can discuss. I definitely never without talking to everyone first. So it's a coordination between Delaware North and the Cardinals before we can, make any decisions on something like that.
Sure. Thank you. Well, we are at 11:15. That is the time that this session is scheduled to end. Thank you very much, Ariel Ardura with the Harvard Law School Food Law and Policy Clinic, Martin Bethea with Delaware North, GreenPath at Busch Stadium and the St. Louis Cardinals, and Katelyn Majors with the St. Louis Area Foodbank. Really appreciate your insights and the resources that you shared with us today. I'm Jean Ponzi, and Michelle, do we go to breakouts now?
Yes, thank you so much, Jean, Ariel, Martin, and Katelyn. I really appreciate all your efforts on this topic. We are going to head to breakout sessions again.